Hey guys! So even though I don't make videos constantly anymore, I do occasionally play in not only Yu-Gi-Oh! Magic, but also a bunch of brand new TCGs that come out. As a matter of fact, my local game store, there's always a guy doing demos, so I'm always trying them out, giving them my own critique. I was very interested to see DMarmada had a list out, and like everything else, the internet just completely messed it up. So we're going to go through this list and we're going to fix it. Now, for those of you who are looking at this list, and you might see a bit of like a little bit of a variance from what he had at the end of this video, the reason is that this is what the internet had voted on and with his 2 vetoes. I didn't want to go through and do the changes last minute that, a lot of people already tuned out at that point. So this is the list that people had made. So we're going to go through, we're going to fix this. I just peeked down. There's Battle Spirit Saga. Let's piss some people off right now. That game is shaky as hell. So here's the thing. Final Fantasy, the big debate I hear about this is that a lot of people, like the company's putting a lot of money, right? But the problem is I heard that same stuff with Final Fantasy, the card game. People thought that card game wasn't going to die because of how much money was getting put in to keep it alive. I have no faith in Battle Spirit Saga. I feel like it might even be DOA, like Dead on Arrival. Like, I just do not see people talking about this game. I don't see investors going for it. I don't see the player base going for it. I don't even see normies talking about it. Like, nobody knows it. Everybody just knows it. So, like, a lot of money that's going to be pushed behind it to make it succeed. You can't brute force it in the TCGs. And when I hear that as a main defense, like, that's the first thing people talk about, that's a bad sign. Vanguard can stay in dead. And I'm not doing these in order, by the way. I'm just putting them in the category they should be in. Force of Will, Force of Dead. Metapoo staying in dead. I don't even need to explain myself. Come on, let's get over these memes. One Piece on the rise. Yes, I know it's the newest hotness. There's always new hotnesses. I cannot believe, for you to be as crushing it, I need to see some results after the first 2 years. Okay, I'm not. It's ridiculous to put in like the new hotness as crushing it. Like I said, all the TCGs are doing well. Like pretty much every TCG you could think of, there's hype behind it. Unless you're like dying or dead, there's hype behind you. Even that's why people are getting so pissed off at the staying solid ranking, because there's so much popularity in card games right now. It doesn't really matter. As long as you're not dying or dead, you're going to have a dedicated and vocal fan base. You're also probably going to have some good sales numbers. Lorcana is being put up ahead of One Piece, in my opinion. I think that way too many TCG players are underestimating the Disney hype train. Disney collectors are going to want this. Kids are going to want this. Look at Yu-Gi-Oh's base model. That card game is like successful because of the anime, right? You have Disney as the anime. The same with Pokemon, in my opinion. Pokemon if you put a new skin over Pokemon, it probably wouldn't be as popular. People knock it for being a Magic Light ripoff, but because that's Pokemon, it's popular. Disney, I seriously think this could actually kill Fab. We'll see. We'll talk more about that later. We're gonna put Yu-Gi-Oh where it needs to be. I don't like Yu-Gi-Oh anymore. I hate modern Yu-Gi-Oh. But for people are ridiculous. And I feel like this happens every probably 5 or 10 years. But no, so we'll say 5. Every 5 years. So people start when they're like teenagers and they grow up and they think because the game's changed so much, it's too hard for new players to get in, blah, blah, blah. That's too much power creep. Konami handles it badly. That's always been Yu-Gi-Oh. Yu-Gi-Oh isn't going to die as long as there's an anime, okay? It's always going to be there. It's always been making money. To put it as staying solid because it's crushing it is the normal ranking it has is absolutely ridiculous. So what if Yu-Gi-Oh hasn't been doing like any better, any worse? It's crushing the rest of the competition with the other big 3. Okay, so let's keep going with the list. Absolutely ridiculous to not have the big 3 under crushing it. Put Magic the Gathering up there. Okay, so I'm actually putting Magic in the last spot of the big 3. I'm going to tell you why before you get all pissy. None of these guys should be dead. Okay, like I don't see any particular part, and Magic Vintage doesn't count. Okay. Magic Vintage is always going to hold its value. But I just mean, like, Magic right now makes me nervous as hell of how bad the management is. They got political. They've been attacking their fans. They've been, like, milking the whales more and pissing everybody off. They've been doing online exclusives. If any of the big 3 were to fail, like, not fail, but just kill their game. So Magic's game, what I mean is, like, you would have, like, local Magic not be a thing anymore. That's what I mean by dead. And I really think that of all the big 3, that's the one that's in danger of losing a lot of its popularity. Yes, I know this game is so big that the vintage cards will always hold value. That they're, but I'd be nervous as hell. Anything that was not like a specialty set or a really, really loved standard booster box. If you had like just regular booster boxes or something, like there's nothing too special about them, but you're holding on to the grow value, I would be nervous as hell about that. I that that's not a good investment right now. Like, don't I'd be kind of trying to sell off some of my Magic collection that again doesn't have any specific kind of collector value. Okay, Pokemon. So I'm putting Pokemon ahead of Yu-Gi-Oh. So I'll explain the ranking of these big three. Okay, Pokemon's ahead because in my opinion, it's got the healthiest way to enter the game. It's also got like multiple ways to play. It's releasing that new vintage set that's like a collector's edition. So it's not too expensive, but it is expensive. It's pretty easy to get a competitive deck right now. And unlike Yu-Gi-Oh, it doesn't have like horrid crap power creep from the formats. Yu-Gi-Oh is second because while they have been doing a lot of crap, like I said, they have the anime to fall back on. Magic's the only one that's really been attacking their fans. So like that's just the one that makes me Digimon's going under staying solid. Again, I don't see this card game dying. It's been doing very well, but it's again the anime games to me. I'm so nervous about. But Digimon's I feel has itself pretty established, unlike something like Grand Archive, which is still fairly new. Digimon could absolutely be falling into the looking shaking category at any time. Like I am not at all guaranteeing it's going to staying solid for very long. But in my opinion, of all the anime games, they've gotten themselves in a really good place. I don't even know what sorcery is. Apparently, people are saying this is like a board game. I'm just going to leave it under dying, not because it's bad. I'm just leaving it there because I don't think it should be on this list at all. So as a TCG, would you really invest in that? You're not investing this as a TCG, okay? So let's skip on. My Hero Academia, yeah, it's like Dragon Ball Super. It could only be there around for like a little bit before the new hotness comes out. Staying shaky, that's where it's going. I've never heard of Shadowverse, and again, I'm a big TCG guy, and so is my locals. So that's not moving. It's dead. Same with Alpha Clash. What the hell is that? Grand Archive can go under staying shaky. I'll put Grand Archive. So Grand Archive is actually the same position it was for the internet's list as my list. I'm just nervous as hell about anime games, and I know the company's really awesome. You have like Weebs of the Shore, like mocking Wizards of the Coast, everything. But to me, I'm feeling like the whole secondary Magic market, so like the Magic ripoffs, we'll say, is starting to get a little bit more flooded. And again, so it's just dealing with it's not only an anime TCG, but it's also a Magic TCG crowded. And Flesh and Blood is also going under the staying solid logo. I'll put that in front of Digimon, I'll be fair. So why is Flesh and Blood not rising or crushing it? Flesh and Blood has, in my opinion, two main problems. So I'm going to start with the good part about Flesh and Blood. It's got a small, dedicated player base. Now, I know there's a lot of players. I know they're doing great. But what I mean is that if the game fell off, it will stay alive because it still will always have a good chunk, like a smaller chunk, but a good chunk of the player base. Whereas if you take a look at something like Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, or Pokemon, when they have bad formats, they still generally have a good sized player base. Fab, I'm just really nervous about Fab because, like I said, there's a like Fab's pretty popular because Magic messed up their Pro Tour, and then they also like made a lot of the player base upset with their politics. But to me, Lorcana, I just look at that game. Like people are like, oh, you think people in Fab are gonna root to Lorcana? What I think is gonna happen is that Lorcana is gonna take a lot of the potential new players for Fab, and instead they're gonna go to Lorcana because it's a lot simpler to get into. And also I just don't think Flesh and Blood has a really good marketing, unlike Disney. Like, I think that the Disney brand itself is just such a good brand. They're going to have women playing that game, which is going to be huge. They'll have children wanting to play that game. It could even be like Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh, where because they have a well-known, like, children's movies and stuff, that people are going to want to play because they recognize the IP, right? They have a good IP. And the main problem I have with Fab is that you have no good way for players to get in competitively right now. You don't really have a known IP. When you combine that with there's other card games coming out, seriously, I think Fab is just going to be dealing with a lot of competition. I wouldn't even want to put it on the rise. I think it's got enough of a player base to keep it solid for now. But, maybe we'll look at this again in another year and we'll see if that fell off. All right. So I hope you enjoyed this list. I probably won't be making any more videos on this channel, at least not for a while. I did enjoy that video, though, DMarmada. Like, no hate, Bo, but yeah, I would definitely not have wasted my video on sorcery. Okay, bye-bye!